Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever it is in the world that you are joining us today. And literally, you're from all over the world. Thank you for taking the time to be with us as we have this very important conversation with our Dean, Dean Jelani Cobb. I'm Taryn Almanzar. I'm the Associate Dean for Admissions and Financial Aid. And once again, welcome and thank you for submitting your questions ahead of time as that guided our conversation with our esteemed Dean. Just a little bit to put this webinar in context, we will not be talking about the admissions process, our different programs, the educational financing. We will have webinars, information sessions, and your ability to meet with us one-on-one to have those types of discussions. Next week on Friday, as a matter of fact, we're going to have a webinar which is titled, What Program is Right for Me? And it's going to demystify and give you just a window view of the different academic programs, what do they offer, what are we looking for, and what you can expect. So with that, I would like to welcome our Dean, Dean Jelani Cobb. How are you today?
Good.
Good.
I'm happy to be here.
I'm glad that you're here. Just so that all of you know, Jelani is very busy, aside from leading.
but always have time to engage with our students and our prospective students. So
yes, which is what we love and what it's key, your accessibility to the CJS community. I now sit on the floor that Jelani sits, and I always see your door open, and I see students coming in, faculty, administrators, just really having that ability to have those conversations with you, or even if it's just to say hi, which is really great. And that's what you will be experiencing if you decide to come to CJS, where the doors are always open.
We have the open door policy, yeah.
That is correct, which is not that common. So just to talk a little bit about all the things that you're doing, let's start with your book.
Oh,
yes.
This little thing?
Yes, this little thing that's sitting here.
This is actually the first of two books. I won't talk about the second one, but
Right.
this one is called Three or More is a Riot, and it is a collection. I've been writing for The New Yorker since 2012. And so I went through and I just kind of culled the essays and articles and profiles that I thought had the most applicability to our current moment, socially, politically, and so on. And it's kind of a retrospective. And I also included essays or kind of notes at the end in which I kind of assessed how, we thought this in 2014, but it turned out to be that we knew by 2022 that this wasn't the case, or I kind of walk through and see how the reporting has held up.
Oh, that is so interesting. So it's history mixed in with what's going in now, and also it's an assessment. It's
exactly. And you know me, you know
Yes.
that I'm a really big advocate of journalism being grounded in history. I think is really important. One of my favorite courses to teach here is my American History for Reporting course. And we want our journalists, our student journalists, to have a sense of not only what's going on now, but what happened before, what came before this, and what is the context that these new events are taking place in.
And how is that helpful?
Oh, it's incredible because it's almost as if you're looking through a keyhole, and then the difference between looking through a keyhole and seeing a whole picture. And so, especially in things like foreign affairs, if you are covering foreign policy, if you're covering, unfortunately, wars, if you're covering global trade and these kinds of things, it's really useful to know, well, the trade relationships were like this before, and this is what's happening. And then we also have seen these population pressures that are driving this concern. And especially for places like the Middle East, places like Latin America,
Right.
Eastern Europe, it's impossible. If we're talking about the current conflict in Ukraine, for instance. It is really impossible to understand what's happening there if we don't grapple with the history of the Cold War. And we have to have at least some grounding in those things before we jump in and report about the thing that happened last night or is going on this morning.
Right. That is that's key, and it's so interesting because I think with everything that is going on in the world, we tend to think, oh, this is, unprecedented. We have
Sure.
nothing to grapple. We have
Right.
nothing to hang on to.
Right.
But what you're saying, well, not so fast.
It's not exactly unprecedented.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And this is what we can learn, and this is how we can cover that. So extrapolating from that and going back to your book, there were two recent pieces, one about your father, which was very touching, and then another one about Ryan Coogler, the filmmaker.
Oh, the filmmaker.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a
Mid-Sinners.
little bit, about those two?
Sure. The most recent things I did for the New Yorker, one was a piece that I wrote about fatherhood, and I had been working on. I don't write personal essays or first person things very often. As a matter of fact, I've been at the New Yorker for 13 years, and this is the first time I've written anything that was this personal. And so I said, in maybe 2038, I'll do something again. I'll do something else.
Right.
But I thought it would be really interesting to look at how fatherhood has changed over the years since I was born, and my father, who was an older father, had me, and then how my relationship is with my own children. And the other piece was a profile of the filmmaker Ryan Coogler, who, this is one thing that I think is important especially for kind of young journalists or aspiring journalists to think about. Sometimes you can have an idea for a story and you jump right on it, and it's great. Sometimes things are a slow burn. And so I met Ryan Coogler more than a decade ago, and we crossed paths, and I was an admirer of his films, and we said we would keep in touch, and then we had a chance to maybe work on something a couple of years ago, and that was like, it didn't work out because of our schedules. And then he reached out and said, I am making a horror movie about vampires set in Mississippi. And, I was like, that is the most original. Would not expect this, to come from you. And so we were able to actually, our schedules worked out. We were able to get together, and I spent, went to California. I spent about a week with him, and then we talked off and on, and I started kind of digging into this. And I got to see the film Sinners, when it was just a rough cut, and as they were making different kinds of, changes to it, and to get to know his artistic process, and then to write this profile of him.
That it's beyond interesting, and I'll just I'll deviate a little bit just so you guys know, because as I'm hearing all of this, what's sticking out to me, Jelani, is that in the span of less than 5-6 minutes, you put world events into context. You've put your personal fatherhood into context, looking at the history, where is it leading now? And then you're talking about a horror movie and being able to write about it. You're also leading this institution. How do you do that? How can I phrase this? How do you manage all of that, or how are you able to pivot from one area to the next? How are you able to do it all?
Well, I will say one thing, about the journalism part of it.
Yes.
Journalism is a tool, and you can use a hammer or a wrench, in 30 different ways. And so what we do, and I tell students this all the time, what we do as journalists is that we chronicle human affairs. And human affairs are varied and complicated and diverse and all these things. And so it's reasonable that one day we can be talking about a horror movie, the next day we can be talking about, a global conflict, or we can be talking about the economy, or we can talk about all of these things that are pertinent. If it's pertinent to a human being, then it's relevant to us. And that's how we proceed. In terms of my own work, one of the best things about this position is that I have really good people around me. And I think that's key. Like, if you are trying to do everything by yourself, you are probably not going to do very much. But if you have a team of people who are focused and committed, and we are all, walking in the same direction, and we have our eye on the ball, then I think we can do great things.
That's very well said, and I'll tie it back to our audience, because one of the questions that we usually get, meaning the applicants and prospective students, they're like, I have different background, I may not have journalism experience, I may be coming straight from undergrad. do I have what it takes? And based on what you've just said, I mean, you said it a lot more eloquent than what I'm about to say, but it's motivation, the motivation and the drive.
Absolutely. We have had people come from background, culinary background. A couple of people who were chefs. We've had people come from legal backgrounds. People come from finance backgrounds. Lots of people who come straight from undergrad, who have an interest. And when I talk with people, I very often will hear, "Oh, I don't have any experience, in journalism." And then I start talking to them about their lives.
Right.
And the things that they do have experience in. And the way that this, for instance, when I was talking to the chef, he said, "Oh, I spent all this time, in kitchens and I don't know anything about journalism." I was like, "Well, tell me a little bit about what you did in kitchens."
Right.
And he was like, "Well, we used to supply, we'd have to make sure that we sourced all of the food that we got. And then, I also did hiring and I did, these things. So I was like, you're telling me that you know about management. You're telling me you know about supply chain. You're telling me that you know a little bit about the labor market. You're telling me that." And then he said, "I know chefs all over the world." And I was like, "Well, those are sources. And you can use those skills in lots of other areas. You don't have to only report about food. As a matter of fact, I would encourage you to get away from food for a little while and use those skills, the things that you've learned. You can report on what's happening in the neighborhood mom and pop stores. Are they being impacted by the tariffs? You can report on what's happening with people and their household budgets and a whole array of things that you take the thing that you know and you can use that as a building block for the things that you need to know.
So it's not as though you're starting at a blank slate.
No one is.
No one is,
Yeah.
right? And also what I'm hearing from this, and this is a great window view of the type of training and the type of coaching that students get here, critical thinking.
Absolutely.
As I'm hearing you say and explain to the chef, like these are all the things that you know about and that you are not realizing that you do. It's the critical
Absolutely.
thinking about, right?
Yeah, and so we, for our 113-year history, there are some things that are very different, than the way we approached them in 1912. And then there's some things that are completely consistent. And from the beginning, we have placed a great degree of emphasis on critical thinking and analytical abilities, that we need to produce students who can go out into the field and understand not just what the story appears to be, but what may be happening a layer below that and a layer below that. And this is where I think our faculty excel. Because we have world-class faculty, we have faculty who have not only taught this, but have done it. And they can walk you through building those skill sets. And famously, we're a deep end of the pool institution. When you get here, you put your bags down and we send you out into the street to report. And you learn by doing.
Right.
And we're with you each step of the way. And so I will say to anyone who is watching and anyone who has any interest in us, I will say the thing that I say to each group of people as they come in the fall semester. You will work hard here. You will work very hard here. But the promise I make is that you will never work harder than the person at the front of the classroom.
And I can attest to that, the level of commitment. I have over 30 years. Yes, I'm older than I look. I think I look. I have close to 30 years of experience in higher education. And one of the things that have kept me here as a believer of education is the faculty. I've graduated from another place here, and I always used to say, my faculty was great. Whenever I reached out to them, they were there for me. But here, the faculty are reaching out to you, and they're saying, what's going on? How is your reporting going? Your source fell through. So you're not a number.
That's
you're
right.
coming in, and they're investing their time and effort and their belief in you. In addition to that, to your point of them working really hard, our faculty are working journalists.
That's right.
And why is that so important, Jelani?
Oh, because we intentionally, look for people who are still interested in producing journalism work. We want you to be actively engaged with the ethical questions that come up, the questions of technology that come up, and just the natural evolution of the field. We used to do it this way, now we're doing it this way. And now we're thinking about these kinds of questions. We want those to be direct, right there in your own experience, and to not have to fall back on something that maybe this is how we did it a decade ago. And one other thing that I'll say is that kind of hands-on mentorship doesn't end when we hand you your degree. We have what I jokingly refer to as the Columbia Extended Warranty Program, which is that when you are out and you're in your first job or beyond your first job, we're still here. I spoke to one of my graduates from 5 years ago over the weekend, actually. And I have another student who I'm going to talk to, former student who I'm going to talk to shortly. And these are, I'm thinking about this story, I want to approach it this way. Well, oh, that sounds good. What about, have you considered this? And we're having these back and forth discussions with, me sharing everything I know and learning from them too, in terms of the experiences that they're having out in the field. And so that is very typical of the kinds of relationships we build here at Columbia Journalism School.
That is a great example because it touches upon the community, which I have to say, as soon as you walk in through those doors as an enrolled student and beyond, you're part of this very tight-knit community. And we're one of the smallest schools within Columbia. But what is so interesting to me is that wherever you are, in New York City or in the world, in an airplane, at a nail salon, whatever it may be,
you will see us.
You will see.
That's right.
You will see one of us out there, which is absolutely great because you know that you'll have that support. And it's also because you have almost like that stamp of, yes, you went through CJS, we know what you went through, you know your training, and let's see how we can help one another.
That's absolutely true. There are two things that I'll add. One is that typically, for people who go to graduate school, you have a close, warm kind of feeling for your undergrad institution, and your relationship with your graduate school is usually very business-like, very transactional. People tend not to be really warm and fuzzy about grad school.
Trust me, they're not.
They aren't. This is an exception.
Right.
People build relationships here that last throughout their careers. In some instances, relationships they have for the rest of their lives. And that is not uncommon at all. And the other part of it is that I think for me, when I travel, I always wear Columbia Journalism School merch. I'll wear my hoodie, I'll wear my sweatshirt, and without fail, if I'm in an airport, someone will say, oh, I graduated from Columbia Journalism School. Or the furthest it will get is my brother or my sister graduated from the journalism school. But someone is going to come up and we're going to have a conversation about Columbia Journalism School.
And I think that's amazing.
It is, especially for a school as tight-knit as we are. Our impact is really, the ripple that comes is just amazing.
Exactly. And it's just like when I started, when I say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, it's literally because
that's right.
All over.
Absolutely.
All over, which is great and key. Let's switch a little bit gears and talk about another area that most students in the U.S. and all over the world are grappling with, and that is the cost of education. And you've made great stride in ensuring and eliminating some of those barriers. For example, waiving the application fee. So for those of you who are thinking, oh, I need to pay to apply to Columbia, you do not. Dean Cobb made sure that we eliminated that barrier so that you are able to apply and explore this as a viable option. You're relentless in fundraising for scholarship funding. Every single penny that we give out, it's based on donations and it's based on funding that we get, and Jelani has been relentless on that. And now we have, and I say now, this is going to be our third year, very successful program, which is the Loan Repayment Assistance Program.
That's right. Yeah, so that is the last program you mentioned.
Right.
One of the key initiatives here, because we want to make it more affordable for people to attain the education that we provide here. And this program will provide up to $50,000 in loan payment reimbursement over the course of 5 years after graduation. It's geared toward people who are working in nonprofit news. precisely because nonprofit news is one of the growing areas, even though you hear a lot of concern about what's happening and the business model and so on. But nonprofit news is a growth area.
Yes.
And so we thought, what if we can subsidize people doing the work that they love to do? And so we started this project out of pocket and then started fundraising for it. And fortunately, the Knight Foundation came in with a $3 million grant to support this. And we've had grants and philanthropic donations from other entities that really are eager to see this development happen as well. And we're not simply in this for us. One of the great developments is that we have now been able to administratively include 3 other schools. So graduates from these other schools will be able to participate as well, because we really want to be a leader in the field of making journalism education more accessible, more affordable, and a more reasonable pursuit for people.
And to me, that is such. I don't want to use the word inspiring because people, it's so inspiring. It's another proof of how CJS leads and will always be a force in the journalism world and in the field. You started this with another, also reporting starts here.
Yeah.
And as I'm hearing you describe the loan repayment assistance program, I'm like, yes, it does, because it extends beyond these walls.
Yeah, we are one of the oldest journalism schools in the country. We're widely recognized as the premier journalism school in the country. And, we have to continue to kind of push boundaries and to push ourselves to new frontiers and to say, what can we do next? And, this may be that we create a data program as we did in 2017, or it may be that we create a doc program as we did prior to that, or any of the things that you see when you go to our website and you see the offerings we have. It may be that we're leading in AI and understanding how AI can be integrated into the news gathering process. Or in another instance, we're leading in determining how people can make this career more affordable and more accessible for them. And on every front, we want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to keep pushing the profession forward, to keep pushing higher education forward, and really to keep pushing our students and our alumni forward.
And that, I would encourage each and every single one of you to think about what just Jelani, everything that you've said, but particularly his leadership style and how he's approaching this great responsibility, that it's from all different angles. As you are exploring other places, as you should, I know it sounds a little bit weird for me to be saying this, but they should be. See what the leaders are doing. See what they are thinking about, how they're approaching education, journalism, the commitment to it, because that will be key in your career and as you're moving forward. Journalism is a calling. Journalism is about the people. It's about moving society forward. And as I hear to Jelani, to his thinking, to his vision, to his mission, that's key.
Thank you. One of the things, and I'll just add something here, one of the things I think is so crucial is we are awash in misinformation, conspiracy theories, pseudo facts, people just promulgating things that frankly are not true. We are in the business of sorting the truth from the mythology. And that's what the tools are for, from the most basic thing of, how do we track down a source? How do we do research? How do we use data to highlight something that might not have been clear before? How do we use investigative skills? How do we sift through information to get to understand things that people might not want us to know? So that if it's in the public interest, we can make sure that the public is aware of what's going on. That is an incredibly valuable skill. We are in the business of producing high caliber journalists, but those skills are applicable in an array of different endeavors. And so we have a particular function and a particular mission that says on the lobby, to educate the next generation of journalists. We take that very seriously. But I also think that it's important to be able to have the skill of gathering information, to have the skill of being able to present information, and to have the skill of being able to work on tight deadlines in anything else that you may want to do down the line.
And I think that's key because there's so many people that might be thinking about, and this is not rare, where may have dual careers.
Absolutely.
Or maybe thinking about pivoting into
Sure.
journalism, but still want to continue to do something else. So those skill sets that you're gaining here are transferable and can be useful in anything that you may want to do. And you can see it in our alums
Absolutely.
as well. We have a quite number of alums that have pivoted or have combined, or even faculty members that are doing the same.
Who are doing the same thing.
Right.
And so, historically people go to law school because, they may not want to be a lawyer, but they want to know what lawyers know. I tell people all the time that going to journalism school is an equally useful proposition. You can be a journalist, but you also can use the skills that journalists have in a wide array of endeavors.
Even in your personal life, just I'm just saying. So, Jelani, anything that you may want to say to those who are seeing what's going on in journalism overall? I've been at the J School for a number of years, and I've seen the ebbs and flows, the challenges that come along in the field. I have not seen or experienced a field that's always in constant, what I call constant motion. It's never static. It's always, I don't want to say even keeping up with the times. It's almost like it's ahead of the time. What would you say to those who are saying, I want to do journalism, but I don't know, I'm hesitant to do it?
Well, I think that journalism is a calling. And, there's some people for whom education is a calling. You feel like that's your calling. Our schools have a lot of challenges.
Right.
But none of those challenges will get addressed if we don't have really talented, high caliber people who are willing to commit to a career in the classroom. The same thing is true of journalism. We have never been more necessary. People have never needed us more than they need us right now. And we have to answer that calling. Journalism is a social good. And, in addition to that, there's something to be said for doing work that's not only important, but, when you get a group of journalists together, they'll tell you that they would do this work for free. There's nothing I love better than starting a new story. There's nothing I love better than being elbow deep in a story where I'm digging up information and I have 50 tabs open on my browser, and I'm looking at this and this interview transcript over here, and then the only thing even better than that is when I file.
Yes.
And I've sent the story in and I'm waiting for edits and those kinds of things. That's the rhythm of my life.
Right.
I love it. And I'm not the only person in this building that feels that way. If you talk to any of the faculty, we all still have that spark, and we have that feeling. And I think if you believe that could be fulfilling to you, and you are a person who doesn't want to do the same thing every day, and who prizes learning, because that's one of the other things, is that this field requires that you learn. That's what you do for a living. You learn things and then you share them with the public. If those things sound fulfilling to you, then I encourage you to give journalism a try.
That is so well said. I'm not even going to try to top that. And I think that's a great way of ending our session, because I know that, like the rest of our audience, you have quite a lot of things also to do. Is there any parting words or anything else that you may want to say or may want to convey? Although I think you did excellent.
Well, I will say, I will end, with our slogan, reporting begins here. And, all of the things, the incredible, complicated journeys that people undertake, they begin, here. And they begin with that first question that you ask when we send you out onto the streets of New York to report, 5 minutes after you've gotten here. And so I encourage you to continue along with the process and to put in an application for Columbia Journalism School.
I agree with him. So once again, thank you, Jelani. Thank you, Dean Cobb. Thank you to all of you. And I hope to see you all. And this is not goodbye. We'll continue to be in contact and in chatting with all of you. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon from wherever it is that you have joined us today.